So far, we've created our questions in a pool. We built a test from the pool questions and using unique questions. Now we're ready to deploy the test to our students. The test is located under Course Tools, Test Surveys and Pools, Tests. This is the test we just created, and we are going to deploy this test on our home page where students can take it. Let's go to the home page. For this demonstration, I'm going to deploy the test to this page. We're going to hover our mouse on Assessments, Test. While we are on this page, I'd like to point out that you have the option to create a test from scratch right here by clicking on Create Test. This is a quick and easy way to create a test and immediately deploy it on your page. However, we strongly recommend following the steps outlined in this tutorial series, and that is creating questions first, then building a test, and then deploying the test. So today we are going to add an existing test to our page, and we are looking for test 1. So I'm going to select test 1, submit. We are now in the test options page. This is where we make settings that control how the student takes the test. First, we need to name the test. By default, the system picks up the name that we provided to the test when we created it. If you would like the student to see a different name on the course homepage, you can change it here. Next, you see the test description, which the system has automatically populated from the test settings. Going further down, you have the option to show the test description and the instructions to the students before they begin, which is a good practice. You'll notice that some settings have been already made. For instance, Open Test in New Window has been set to No, and we're going to leave it as is. Next, we come to test availability. We're going to make the link available to Yes. Next, you have the option to add a new announcement for this test, which means when you hit submit on this screen, an announcement will be posted within e-learning that lets your students know that this test is available to take. I'm going to leave this to No. Next, you can select the number of attempts for this test. If it's a high stakes test or a proctored exam, it's going to have just one attempt. In this case, I'm going to select multiple attempts, and you have the option to either allow unlimited attempts or a certain number of attempts. Then you have the option to score attempts using a certain logic. Last graded attempt, the highest of the grades or the lowest of the grades, or the first grade or an average. This is a way to apply a penalty for taking the test more than once. In this case, I'm going to leave it at last graded. Next is force completion. Force completion is a setting that forces the student to take the test in one sitting, which means if they begin the test and they end the test for whatever reason, they will not be able to save and continue. While this setting works perfectly well, we have found there are many technical issues which might cause a student to stop the test and then they will get locked out of it. So we recommend not using force completion. Next, we'll select the timer and select the shortest possible time frame within which this test can be comfortably attempted. So I'm going to set 15 minutes for this test. If you don't select a timer, that means a student can take as long as they need to complete the test. Next is auto submit. Auto submit is a feature that submits the test after the time has passed. If auto submit is turned off, the student can continue the test even after the time is complete. Whereas if you turn on auto submit, it means once time is complete, the test is automatically submitted. We strongly recommend turning on auto submit for any test or quiz that's graded. Next, we come to the display. The display after and display until timestamps control the time frame during which the test is visible to the student. In this case, I'm going to leave them blank because I want the student to see the test immediately. Next is the password field. In this case, I'm not going to enter a password. Next, we come to test availability exceptions, and we'll talk about this in a separate video. Moving on to the due date. The due date is the last and final date after which the test is considered late. Notice that you also have the option to prevent students from starting the test if the due date has passed. Next, we come to self-assessment options, and this is a setting that feeds the score from this test into the grade center total. If this test does not count towards the total, then you would exclude this by unchecking this box. Next, we have show test results and feedback to students. In an online test, you have the option to let the students see how they scored on the test, what they answered, whether they got the answers right, and what the correct answers are. In these two rows, you can select what the student must see. Depending on the nature of the test, you may want to show or hide this information. If it's a high stakes test, you may want to leave everything blank. The last area is test presentation. By default, all the questions are presented to the student at once, so the student can scroll up and down and look at the questions and change the answers to any question. The other option is to present the test one question at a time, and you can also prohibit backtracking, which means once selected, answers cannot be changed. I'm going to leave it at the default, which is all at once. And the last option is randomizing questions. If you turn on this option, it will randomize the questions for every time the test is attempted. In other words, if you had a single attempt test, then every student attempting the test would see the questions in a different order. And if you had a multiple attempt test where the same student could take the test more than once, each time they start the test over, the questions will be randomized. If you wanted every student to see the questions in the same order, you would not turn this on. So we've made all our settings, and I'm going to submit. And we are back to the home page, and at the very top I see a green success message. If I scroll to the very bottom, my new test has now been added to my home page. If I click on the drop down next to the test, I have the option to edit the test, which means edit the test questions or the test canvas, or go back and edit the test options, which is the options we just set up. Also remember that when you deploy a test, a grade column is automatically created for that test. If I go into the grade center, this is the column that has been created for the test I just deployed. When students take the test, their attempts will show up over here. That brings us to the end of this tutorial, how to deploy a test.